a small-town farmer known for his bitter racism lived a life full of hatred and prejudice. But what happened when this man died is something that no one could have ever predicted. After his passing, he returned from death with a message so profound and shocking that it left everyone in disbelief. His near-death experience didn't just change his life, it changed everything he thought he knew about the world, about people, and about himself. What did this man learn from beyond the grave? And how did his experience alter the course of his life forever? John was a man set in his ways. He had lived his entire life in a rural farming town where he had built up a reputation for being harsh, prejudiced, and bitter. His beliefs were rooted in fear and ignorance, and his interactions with people of different races were filled with disdain. The townfolk knew him as a man who would always turn his back on those who didn't look like him, and he made no effort to hide his views. His life had been one of isolation, with few close relationships. He spent his days on his farm, working the land and nurturing his crops, but he never took the time to nurture relationships with others. He was quick to judge, quick to criticize, and slow to forgive. Despite this, there were moments when John would question the meaning of his life. Though those moments were fleeting, pushed away by the harsh walls he had built around himself. John's story wasn't one of crime or violence, but rather one of quiet bitterness. He lived in his bubble, convinced that his way of thinking was the only truth. But one fateful day, his life took a dramatic turn when a sudden heart attack struck him down. On a typical day, John collapsed on his farm. It wasn't a loud, dramatic scene. It was simply him clutching his chest in pain and falling to the ground. His heart stopped, and his body was soon declared lifeless. His family, though estranged due to his harsh attitude, rushed to his side, but it was too late. John was pronounced dead on the spot. For a few moments, everything was silent. No more heartbeat, no more breath. But then something extraordinary happened. John's soul left his body, and he found himself standing in an unfamiliar, ethereal space. It wasn't like anything he had ever imagined. There were no flames or torture, but instead a feeling of weightlessness and detachment. He could see his body below, lifeless on the ground, but it was as if he were watching from a great distance. Before he could fully process the situation, he was greeted by a figure of light. An entity that radiated warmth, peace, and a presence that was undeniably comforting. John didn't know it at the time, but he was standing before an angel, sent to guide him through the experience beyond death. The figure spoke to John in a voice that was calm and serene, yet full of authority. "John," the voice said, "you are here because your time on earth has ended, but this is not your end. You have been given another chance to see the truth, to understand the world as it truly is." John's heart raced, though he no longer had a body. His mind was filled with confusion and fear. He had never believed in anything beyond this life. He had always thought that death was just the end, a simple extinguishing of life. But now, standing in this strange realm, he could feel that there was something far greater than he had ever imagined. The angel's words were not just comforting, they were a revelation. You have spent your life looking at others with prejudice, with hate, and with ignorance. You have shut your heart to the truth, but now you must understand the consequences of these actions. John's confusion deepened. He wanted to argue, to say that his views were right, that his life had been justified. But as the angel continued speaking, John began to feel something he had never felt before, a deep, unsettling regret. The angel guided John to witness the world from a perspective he had never known. He was shown a vision of the earth, a vision of suffering, division, and hatred. People of all races, creeds, and colors were fighting amongst themselves, torn apart by misunderstandings, bigotry, and the deep-seated prejudices that plagued humanity. John watched as families were torn apart, societies were destroyed, and the earth itself seemed to be withering under the weight of human conflict. He saw the damage that had been done by centuries of hatred and division. The earth, so full of potential, was now scarred by the choices of people who refused to see each other as equals. It was a horrifying sight, one that John could hardly bear to watch. As he stood in this vision, the angel's voice broke through. "This is the reality you have helped create," the angel said. "You may think your actions, your words, are insignificant, but they contribute to this larger picture of division. Every time you judge someone based on their race, their background, or their appearance, you add to this darkness, and the world suffers because of it." John tried to deny it, but the truth of the vision was undeniable. He had spent his life perpetuating this hatred, and now, as he watched the consequences unfold, he realized the depth of his mistake. The angel continued, showing John how deeply interconnected humanity truly was. People, regardless of their differences, shared the same struggles, the same hopes, and the same fears. The boundaries that separated them, those built on race, religion, and social status, were illusions, false constructs that had been created by fear and ignorance. John saw families of different races working together, children playing together, and people coming together in unity. He witnessed acts of kindness, compassion, and understanding that transcended the barriers of race. It was as if he had been shown the world as it could be, a world of peace, harmony, and cooperation. But then the vision shifted, and John saw what could happen if humanity continued down its current path, if people continued to hate and divide themselves. The peaceful world he had seen was replaced with a bleak and desolate landscape, filled with conflict and destruction. The suffering was unimaginable, and it seemed as though the earth itself was weeping. The angel's voice grew solemn. "You have been given a glimpse of both possibilities, John. The choice is not for you to make alone, but you can make a difference, even now. You must understand the power of love, of seeing each person as a child of God, regardless of their race or background. Only through this understanding can the world begin to heal." As the angel spoke, something shifted inside of John. The hatred and bitterness that had once consumed him began to melt away. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to see others as equals. It wasn't just about tolerance, it was about love. It was about accepting the humanity in everyone, regardless of their skin color or heritage. The weight that had burdened him for so long seemed to lift. John realized that his life had been shaped by fear, by a misunderstanding of what it meant to truly be human. And now, standing in the presence of the divine, he understood that the path to redemption wasn't through punishment, but through compassion. As the angel prepared to send him back to his body, John was filled with a profound sense of peace. He knew his life was about to change. He wasn't sure how, but he was determined to try, to make amends, to change his ways, and to share the message he had been given with others. Suddenly, John was back in his body. The world around him was dark. The sounds of life rushed back to him. He could hear the beeping of medical equipment and the voices of doctors as they tried to resuscitate him. And then, to everyone's surprise, John's heart started beating again. He was alive. When he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by his family and medical professionals who were in shock. But John knew that he wasn't the same man who had collapsed on the floor. The hatred that had once consumed him was gone, replaced by a new understanding of love, unity, and compassion. He felt reborn, a different person entirely. As he recovered in the hospital, John began to reflect on everything he had seen. He realized that he had been given a second chance, not just at life, but at understanding what it truly meant to live. He knew he had to change, and he had to help others understand what he had learned. But change wasn't easy. John had spent his entire life harboring hatred and prejudice, and the world around him wasn't ready to forgive him overnight. His family was skeptical of his transformation, and many of his old friends and neighbors didn't believe that he had truly changed. They saw him as the same man who had lived a life of intolerance and division. But John didn't give up. He started to speak out, sharing his experience and the lessons he had learned. He began to volunteer in his society, working with people from all walks of life. Slowly, people started to see the change in him. His words, his actions, and his heart all reflected the new person he had become. John's transformation began to have a ripple effect in his society. His message of love, unity, and the importance of seeing beyond the surface resonated with others. More and more people started to question their own biases and prejudices. They began to recognize the power of compassion and how it could heal even the deepest divisions. John's story spread beyond his town, inspiring others to look within themselves and challenge their own views. He became an unlikely beacon of hope, a living testament to the power of redemption and the potential for change. John's story serves as a powerful reminder that it's never too late to change. Even the most hardened hearts can be transformed if given the right understanding and the chance to see the truth. His near-death experience showed him the consequences of living a life based on hatred and division, but it also revealed the incredible potential for growth and healing. The message John brought back from his time in the afterlife is simple yet profound. Love each other, see the humanity in every person, and never let prejudice cloud your vision. It is through love and unity that we can change the world. If you found John's story inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more life-changing stories that can help shape a better tomorrow. Together, we can make a difference.